Hello and welcome to the Arena Sports Show. Today's episode, listen, we're going to start it off with a little bit of some humble pie. I've been taking a bit of a jab on Sizwe Mabena, saying that he can't kick a ball. So I brought a soccer ball today to see what he can do. So, Mahlatse Mphahlele, yes. There's the ball. Let's see what the gents can do.
Let's see what you can do. Oh! This is all me. There you go.
I'm not too sure about Sizwe Mabena's first touch here, but nonetheless, we've seen what he can do. Let me know your thoughts. I am Clauiee Grace Mpanza. Alongside of me, of course, as always, Mahlatse Mphahlele and Sizwe Mabena. On today's show, we'll be looking into everything the Nedbank Cup. We'll also get, of course, to touch base on the cricket as to what's been happening. We do know that the T20 challenge is upon us, and then we'll also get to cross over to find out what's happening in the ladies' game. And, of course, so much more to look forward to. On that note, let's find out what's been happening on your headlines.
The University of Pretoria became the first team to book a place in the quarter-final stage of the Netbank Cup following a 2-1 extra-time win over crisis-riddled Morocco Swallows on Wednesday in Pretoria. TS Galaxy coach Sia Dramovic is confident that veteran attacker Bernard Parker will play competitive football again before the end of the season after he was cleared by doctors to start full-contact training. Parker has been out of action since October, where he suffered a broken leg in an over-the-top challenge by Bongani Zungu during Galaxy's 5-4 calling knockout penalty shootout win against Mamelodi Sundowns. Rassie Erasmus has confirmed a repurposed Springbok coaching and management team that includes coaches Tony Brown and Jerry Flannery as he began to prepare for what is going to be a bumper 13-test season and is also the start of a new World Cup cycle. The Basketball Africa League suffered a blow this week when Burundian side Dynamo Basketball Club withdrew from the Kalahari Conference after they refused to comply with the league's rules and requirements governing jerseys and uniforms. Cricket South Africa has saluted distinguished umpire Marius Erasmus, who has retired after a glittering career of more than 18 years, where he officiated 82 tests, 124 men's ODIs, 43 men's and 18 women's T20s respectively.
Well, I was hoping to eat a little bit of humble pie. I don't know if now that proves that Sizwe Mabena really can't kick a ball because that first touch was a bit questionable, Mabena.
What do you mean? Firstly, I'm coming back from injury.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm one with the ball. Everyone here can see I'm one with the ball every week, you know?
No, this is the best position you've got with the ball.
You know, let's all just tell the truth now. We all know I'm coming back from injury.
At least I did my job. I gave you the pass and then the rest was okay. He didn't have to move.
No, he didn't. But it was
because
all
I know
over
I can't
the
get
place.
into space, so I must take it to you.
Yeah.
So we'll keep on trying, yeah?
Okay.
We'll keep it. But you know what I love, though?
Yeah?
Is that last week when we ended off the show, we said that who has not kicked the ball? It's you. Going to the Soweto Derby predictions, you got your Soweto Derby predictions spot on. The man who knows how to kick the ball, Mahlatse Mphahlele, was not so spot on. But we'll talk about the Soweto Derby a bit later on the show.
Please.
So that's a bit of a save, but you're terrible on your footwork. Moving over. Mahlatse Mphahlele, I mean, we just heard the headlines and we're looking into the Springboks and the intentions that they have. I mean, it's a busy year for them. Talk to us about, of course, the coaches that they've included for the Boks.
Yeah, I guess if you start hearing the name of Rassie quite regularly, you know that the Boks are busy.
It's time.
It's time for the international season, defending champions. There's just these good vibes around the Springboks, and you know, sometimes it's not surprising at the way successful they are, because there's a lot of planning. I mean, the first match is only in June against Wales in England, but there's a lot of work that has been done behind the scenes. There was an alignment camp recently, and now he introduced the new two coaches, Sanchez Flannery and Brown. It shows that you know, they are preparing, and you know, when the season comes, I am definitely sure that they'll be ready to take on what's coming. They're playing no less than 13 test matches this season, which is a lot, including New Zealand twice here at home, which something that should be really should be to sort of look forward to.
I have to ask you about the captaincy situation with South Africa. Nothing wrong with Sia, I have to say. Nothing wrong with what he's done over the last couple of World Cups. But going forward, is he still the man for the job?
Yeah, the SIA issue is interesting. Firstly, SA Rugby has always had this thing that the captain must be based in South Africa. As we all know, that is based overseas.
Yep.
That's another sticking point. And I just feel, I mean, if you have won 2 World Cups as captain, what more do you want, you know? For me, if you would to seek my advice, I would say step aside. They say a good dancer knows when to leave the stage, you know. You don't want us to be saying, yeah.
It's time now, please go.
Time now.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like we have got a shortage of capable guys who can come through. You look at this current team now, World Cup experience. Eben Ezapeth, Bongi Mbonambi, Lukanyo so there's quite a number of guys who can come through in there and lead this side. I don't think that the coach will have a problem doing that. So for me, step aside and let's get a new guy who can take us forward, because also the interesting thing about the Springbok, this is the beginning of a new World Cup cycle.
Yeah.
So we want the guy who will start and take us to the World Cup, a new captain, new ideas, and that kind of thing. So I think he must step aside and we appoint a new guy.
Sheesh, I don't know how I feel about that, Mahlatse Mphahlele. I mean, you look at a Lewis Hamilton race in Formula One, and one could argue that, my guy, maybe you could have stopped at 7-time world champion and consider doing something else. So it's always, personally, I think from a fan perspective, it's always difficult to let go of, you know, of those people that you love, because you still want to see them shining and leading. So, but maybe from your perspective, makes sense. We move over then to our star of the week. This is, of course, a feature that we always have, where we get to find out who has impressed us in the past few days. Last time I started with Sizwe Mabena. Today I'm starting with Mahlatse Mphahlele. Mphahlele, who is then your star of the week?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to surprise a lot of people. I'll go with Monapulian Saleng.
Oh!
Somebody who hasn't been playing for such a long time, thrown into the deep end, the Soweto Derby.
Yeah.
And, did what he did over the weekend. And I think the coach knew that Saleng is a big game player.
Yeah.
He always rocks up when the team needs him the most. And he delivered, scored a brace in the Derby. They beat Chiefs. You know, so yeah, I'll pick him as my guy. Yeah.
So then, follow-up question: does it then change your perspective? Because I know you're also quite pedantic with the midweek fixtures, the smaller fixtures. Yeah. But then you do get players who just shine on the big stage. So what does that then say to you with those kind of players? Because you also look at Patrick Masangwani. You could also argue that he shows up at the big stages, and then we see a bit more mistakes on the smaller encounters.
Yeah, I guess this is the problem that our players face most of the times. You know, you need consistency. If you are not consistent, unfortunately, you are not going to make it at the international level. And you are right; it's a challenge that Masangwani sometimes faces. I mean, I think he's a good footballer. Still a long way to go in terms of him as an international footballer. You give him, with due respect, a so-called smaller team or a Golden Arrows or something like that. He fades in the matches. He doesn't gain control. He wants the big occasion to dance and do all this other stuff. So consistency is important, and you must be effective for a coach, even if you are playing against a second division team. As effective as you are playing in the Soweto Derby or you are playing against Sundowns. So that's where the challenge is for these guys, to make sure that they are consistent. And if you are consistent, then the national team coach will be happy.
Well, he's mentioning him, Hugo Broos these days, which for me, I feel like when you're good enough to start shining in derbies and shining and becoming a bit of a star in the local game, it's always important to have the next challenge
100%.
coming your way.
Yeah.
And Hugo Broos is speaking about Masangwani now, had a great derby. And when they say you could be the next Zwane, that's something to work towards.
Yeah, no.
And I think for him, that's something to aspire towards, to continue to to improve.
It's big shoes to fill, because if you look at Zwane has been consistent now for like 6-7 seasons.
Even more.
Can Masangwani do that? I mean, that's the challenge.
Yeah.
So let's see how it goes.
And we'll definitely unpack that just a bit later then, to find out, of course, what else Coach Hugo said. Sizwe Mabena, your star of the week?
Boxing. I'm not a big fan of these exhibition matches, I have to say, but I like what happened last weekend in that order was restored with Anthony Joshua beating Francis Ngannou. I'm a big Francis Ngannou fan, as you know. But I don't think anyone can just step into boxing and do what Ngannou did against Tyson Fury, which to me was more Fury dropping the ball as well as Ngannou did. I don't think Fury was at his best. And then there was talk of, I think, the WBA, the head of the WBA, possibly saying Ngannou now could step into professional boxing in the top 10 ranking. I thought to myself, no, man, it can't be right. that you just box at such a late age against people that have been boxing since they were kids. And you have one good match and now we see you as amongst the best in the world. No. So the way Anthony Joshua beat him as well, couple of rounds, just 2 rounds, laid him out flat, dropped him 3 times. It restores order to just, let's respect those that have been in the sport for a very long time, and not just anybody from any other sporting code can just step in and claim to be amongst the best in the world. No, too much work goes into it. So Anthony Joshua is my star of the week for just restoring order and respect for the world of boxing.
I guess a lot of the boxing fans will agree with you, because a lot of people sometimes argue that to say maybe boxing is dying, but when you see the likes of Anthony Joshua show up and to say, no, we still have it and we can still do it, I think it's absolutely amazing. I agree with you. My star of the week, still in MotoGP. I know you probably were hoping that I go somewhere else.
For guessing there.
That's 2 weeks in a row now. Let's see next week.
It's a different rider. No, we're having the opening season, of course, last weekend. So you had to get someone from there. For me, it's Marc Marquez, 8-time world champion. He's moved to Honda to Ducati, which is a big switch. I mean, for the longest time, anybody that has to step up for Marc Marquez at the Honda, they would struggle because it was a bike that was set up for Marc and his preference. So now going into Ducati, it's a new challenge for him. So now he needs to find a way to handle the Ducati. I remember actually before the race started, he was struggling a bit with the handling. So now they had to figure out, okay, so what's wrong? How do we fix it? So I think for me, Marc Marquez, a new challenge, still pushing himself and trying, of course, then to get his 9th world championship. So definitely loving it, and hopefully it will get better and he will, of course, stay shining, and the other MotoGP riders. That's a nice thing though about MotoGP, hey? It's like it's an on battle, like continuously. So we could go on and on about MotoGP, but I don't want to bore you guys. Okay, cool.
That's your sport, eh?
Listen, anything that got speed, I got it. But let's move over. We do know that the T20 challenge is upon us. Yesterday, we had, of course, the Warriors playing the Titans. Let's find out, as our runner, influencer, Mahlatse Mphahlele, had, of course, a few conversations with the coach.
I think it was a good game. It was obviously a tight game. It would have been nice to get over the mark with another win. But unfortunately, we had in-batters, that includes myself, to be there at the end, then we would have easily go over the mark. But we lost crucial wickets at crucial parts of the innings. It was in both teams' hands. It was more in our hands. We could have won it easily, but then we just lost those crucial wickets.
Yeah, it was a great game of cricket. I think every time you come to Centurion, you expect close games, especially against a quality experienced outfit like the Titans. Centurion is a great place to play Supersport Park, so the boys look forward to coming here. Yes, it was a bit close, but I'm glad that, you know, one of our mantras is to scrap no matter what, whether you end on the winning side or losing side. But tonight we were just fortunate that a couple of things went our way at the back end and we were able to get over the line.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the IPL. Can't wait for it. It's around the corner, and yeah, super excited. It's going to be a great tournament and can't wait to see what happens.
We just try and improve every game. You know, we got a couple of guys that are going to be missing now going to the IPL, so things does change a bit. So our squad depth will be tested. So, you know, it's something that we've chatted about. Everybody knows their role, so at least there's clarity around where everybody fits in. So I don't think it's a target on our back. I just think that we're just going to try and improve and get stronger with every game. Yes, there will be tougher games and tougher challenges, and you never go unbeaten, you know, you're going to experience a loss, but it's about being consistent in what you're trying to do in preparation and staying strong emotionally when games get tight.
I always just want to give my best for the team and leave a good environment and just give my best and just show that I play with passion and to inspire people around the field and on the field. So I feel that's what I strive for, play to honour God and to play for my teammates as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, guys understand their roles. I mean, Andrich Nokia is going to IPL, and Marco Janssen, Tristan Stubbs, these are big players in our team. But that gives other guys an opportunity to stand up. I think we've prided ourselves that when we've lost guys to tournaments or to the national side, we've managed to find and unearth 1 or 2 stars in the tournament. So hopefully some guys will, when they get the opportunity, they put their hand up, they take it, and they can show what they're about, you know, in T20 cricket in South Africa.
Well, I don't know how to feel about this, Mahlatse Mphahlele, because last week you managed to speak to the Titans coach, and unfortunately, you didn't bring that ladylike for him because unfortunately he was defeated against the Warriors on Wednesday. Talk to us about the encounter, of course, also what stood out from you. And I mean, we do know that there's also the issues of players moving over to go play in the IPL, what then that does for, of course, the Warriors and the Titans.
Yeah, the CSA T20 is in full swing now. What impressed me besides the game was there was a reasonable crowd at Soweto Park last night. They're talking about more than 1,000 people rocked up.
Yeah.
It was not bad for a midweek game. It was good, and I think the draw cut for these matches would be the fans coming here to see Heinrich Klaassen, coming to see Aiden Makram, Devil Brevis, Marco Johnson, Tristan Stubbs, so it was nice from that perspective. And also the game itself was also good. We went to the last ball still not knowing who's going to win.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting finish. Two good teams. The Warriors, obviously the ones who are on the right side of the result, they beat the Titans for their third win in a row. The first defeat for the Titans. So it was a nice match. Two good teams, Proteas all over the place. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Good for the Warriors.
So what we were hoping for ahead of this is basically coming right, in that with the star players there, the fans are showing that they will be interested, and again there will be interest in the local game. So we talked about it, we hoped it would be the case, and clearly it's panning out to be that way. So good for cricket and the local game as well.
And also the other thing, I was a bit worried for the CSA T20 thing that maybe fans will still be hung over from the SA T20. But it's showing that people just can't get enough of T20 cricket. They keep on coming back. Obviously, in some grounds there hasn't been too many. The crowds has not been good. But you imagine that as we go to the last stage of the tournament, it will be more. Because if you can remember, not all the Proteas are leaving to India. Because not everybody's got an IPL contract. You will still have Proteas players playing who didn't get lucky enough to get the IPL contract. So I mean, for the Warriors, they are losing two key players, Stubbs and Marco Johnson.
Yeah.
For the Titans, it's quite a sizable one. We've got Tabrai Shamsi, we've got Devil Brevis, we've got Aiden Makram, and a few others. So they will feel it a little bit, but still, I'm sure they can still be able to compete. But the tournament is going along very nicely, and there's some good crowds, some good action on the pitch, and I enjoyed my time out at Motorsport Park last night.
Talk to us about the youngsters, because this is a conversation that's ongoing in most sporting codes, right? From what you've seen with the T20 Challenge, who are some of the youngsters that have impressed you?
Yeah, well, the one to look forward to is this kid who was the player of the tournament for South Africa at the under 20. He's playing for the Lions. I think it's Mahaka. And I've been watching him. Very, very good lefty, fast bowler. He bowls 130 consistently, which is a little bit scary.
Yeah.
He reminds me of a young Kagiso Rabada.
Sure.
And then Titans have got two young players who were part of that team. So yeah, it's also good to see that youngsters are coming through. Because then these are the guys who will take us forward into the future. So yeah, that element is also there, that the teams are giving youngsters a chance, which is very important. Yeah.
Mabena, I know every time you and I talk cricket, we talk about how holistic it is, right? It's not just the cricket match, but what else it brings. And that's always the comparison between a football game and a cricket. Talk to us about that experience as well.
In the attendance, the experience of... I'll actually use an example with cricket and rugby. And I'll use a famous footballer we all know, Mark Fish. I've over the years gotten to know him and worked with him on a few occasions during our Kosafa adventures, as we call it that way. And he went to his first rugby match last year, only his first.
Jeez.
And he was inviting me, Sizwe, let's go. I said, no, I won't go.
Yeah.
Because we had a game the next day early. So he went off to the rugby. He comes back from the rugby and he couldn't believe it. He says, look, I've been to a million soccer matches, Italy, and he's played all over the world, and including Bafana internationally. Says the experience you get from a rugby match, outside of just the match alone,
For sure.
what's going on around the stadium, the event in itself, it's such an experience for the kids, for the adults, the tents that are going on around the venue, that he had the time of his life. And for an athlete who played as an international and did it all, playing at the World Cup and an AFCON, winning an AFCON, to come back and saying, I've had the sporting experience of my life. It's something, it tells you a lot about what goes into just the day around a rugby match. Cricket is very much the same.
Yeah.
There's many times I've gone to a cricket match and maybe I've watched maybe 5 overs and I've lost myself with everything else that's going on. And I'm
Lost your phone too. Lost your phone too.
And I'm there the whole day, from beginning to end.
I don't know how many 5 days I've done of Test cricket.
Yeah.
You sit there, and sometimes when you're watching two good teams, let's say South Africa, India, you know, the 5 days of intense proper Test cricket.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable. A lot of people don't find it enjoyable, but it is. You know, looking at how the guys are racking out the numbers and all those kind of things. It's crazy. Coming back to the Markfish issue, I was just about to say that for a guy who grew up in Pretoria and in Sunnyside, next to Loftus, I'm surprised that he's gone to the rugby stadium for the first time. You know,
For Springbok,
but rugby, I mean, I remember I was at Mbombela Stadium.
The best stadium, say it with your chest, please.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
For,
Oh, really? I wonder why.
for Springboks, All Blacks.
Yeah. Yes.
The atmosphere that I felt inside that stadium before the start of that match, I've been around, and that is probably in my top 3 of the best atmospheres I've had inside the stadium.
Yeah, so
it was something unbelievable.
Cricket is very much the same. I've been to a Currie Cup final, very much the same, where there's so much around the actual game itself that by the time the game starts, you're already having the best day of your life.
For sure.
One of the best days of your lives, or best day in a long time. So that's where I think football could maybe learn 1 or 2 things from those 2 sporting goals. Cricket does a stunning job. If you go to the cricket for the first time, you'll love it. You'll enjoy it. You'll meet people. You'll have fun. You'll move around. It's almost like going to a picnic around a sporting event. So it's a great experience. And anyone who hasn't done it, I highly recommend it.
I love how you're suddenly shining, both of you all, just talking about your experience. So hopefully we can
and
get
we
a
go
bit
to a lot of football matches. So you telling me rugby and cricket are fun. You know?
You're definitely on the money. On that note, let's then move over to motorsports. We do know that MotoGP is now upon us, and Formula One. We managed to catch up with Prince Ndweni, who is a motorsport broadcaster, to find out his thoughts on both seasons. Prince, thank you so much for joining us here on the Arena Sports Show. Talk to us about MotoGP first, as we have, of course, our very own South African, and Brad Binder, and what a season is having so far. I mean, especially since we've just launched the 2024 MotoGP season over the weekend. He did it on a Saturday and on a Sunday. Talk to us about his performance.
Yeah, it's vintage Brad Binder, just continuing where he left off last year. I think he has a really strong setup with KTM. They believe in him. They believed in him from being in Moto3 and Moto2. And being in MotoGP, he's definitely the rider they're backing going to the future. So you can see the confidence has just always been there. What I think we've all seen has been missing was the general pace of the bike consistently throughout the season, as opposed to hit and miss. I think a lot of the time it comes down to him having an ability to manage a situation. For example, in Qatar, they were dealing with rear tire degradation a lot more than anything. I think Pedro Acosta was also dealing with the same thing. Obviously, his experience would be a reason for him struggling there. But the fact that Brad Binder shows up on occasions like that tells you that if the bike is then in perfect condition, he's able to deliver a performance like he's given us this past weekend. He, of course, struggled to stay ahead of Jorge Martin. For the majority of the race, there was quite a battle back and forth between the two of them, as Martin pretty much has more raw pace. Obviously, I mean, Ducati naturally, all the Ducati is a bit difficult to deal with. So it's going to be a challenge for KTM to match that benchmark consistently throughout the season. But otherwise, I think Brad Binder is definitely, he's definitely in peak form, and he keeps improving.
All right. Lastly, pit stops before we let you go. Talk to us about Formula One. I mean, we've heard the dominance era, right? Where we have the Schumacher era, Hamilton era, and now we've got the Max Verstappen era. Which for you, and perhaps maybe might be an unfair question, because a lot of people feel that the Max era is a bit boring. But as a neutral and as a broadcaster, do you think this Max era is different from the Schumacher and the Hamilton era?
I can put on a neutral hat and tell you that the reason why this era is quote unquote boring is because we saw the transition into making this era happen. We saw step by step the sport pivot very uncomfortably with a lot of friction to get us into the space where Red Bull's the strongest team on the grid. Max Verstappen is the strongest driver on the grid. But I think I would fault Red Bull and F1 administration more than I would fault Max Verstappen, because any driver in his position would do exactly the same thing, which is continue driving and getting better at your craft and drive whatever is given to you. So I think that's why this era is boring for a lot of fans, because we came out of the 2020-2021 period where rules were changing very suspiciously and augmented. And of course, even more emphatically, AD21, Schumacher built a team around him. He struggled at Ferrari. Hamilton built a team around him. He struggled. You know, we wanted to see that organic transition with Max, and that didn't happen, at least as yet. Maybe that'll come. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the gist of it if you're going to compare eras back to back.
Interesting conversation there with Prince Ndweni, Sizwe Mabena. I think we've had this conversation off air in terms of, you know, the era, people comparing the Max Verstappen era, the Schumacher era, the Lewis Hamilton era. What do you think about the comparisons that we're seeing?
Schumacher and Hamilton I can understand because of the longevity of those eras. The Verstappen era, when you bring that into this argument, doesn't quite resonate the same way for me, in that, it's only 1-3? So it's the beginning or the middle of an era that might, we don't know just yet, be something similar to what Schumacher and Hamilton did. When Schumacher did it, for me, when I was much younger then, but I had the feeling, and I wasn't paying as much attention as I do now to sporting events at that time, especially to MotoGP or to Formula One racing.
Yeah.
But I had the feeling then that he was running away with it every season. With Hamilton, it was more competitive. There was times when he had to really fight to win the championship and so on.
For sure.
The Verstappen one seems like he's running away with it season after season. But then again, we are only 3 seasons in. So let's give it time, see if he'll match those two before we begin to compare him to the likes of Schumacher and Hamilton. Maybe we could compare him to Vettel.
Yeah, the lower tier, yeah?
Yeah, same WhatsApp group there. 4 championships, 3 championships. That's where he's at now. But he's not at that level yet to be brought into the Schumacher-Hamilton conversation, for me.
All right, and I think that's interesting because you also look into the fact that a lot of comparison between Hamilton and Max, and you ask yourself what warrants that. Yes, they've been racing together. Yes, Max has been trying to catch up with Lewis. Red Bull finally managed to give him the quickest car, which is great. But at the end of the day, 7-time world champion is Lewis Hamilton. So we do move over, Mahlatse Mphahlele. I do know that you're also excited about this. It's the women's game, right? And it's growing in South Africa, which is absolutely exciting. You look at the Hollywood Bet Super League. Currently tied on points, it's Mamelodi Sundowns ladies and University of Johannesburg, both with 6 points. Literally the only thing that differentiates them is the goal difference, just by 1. So I think that's absolutely interesting. You managed, Sizwe Mabena, to catch up with your old friend. Talk to us about that.
Mphahlele, she's been involved in the game for a long time. With Safa now for very many years, 10 or more years, I think. And before that, started off her career with Amazulu. Behind the scenes years ago. So she knows all about the game, both on the men's side and on the female side, but speaks highly of the female game and the way it's going these days. Also, in my time with her, I enjoyed finding out that we are now attracting players from overseas. We're not only sending players out overseas, but the Hollywood Bet Super League is bringing players into the Super League, into South Africa from abroad. I'm talking beyond the African borders here. So that's rather interesting. And she, of course, she gives us more.
All right, so let's find out what Namhla has to say.
Very exciting 2024 season of the Hollywood Bet Super League. We're going into week 3 now. We've had 27 goals in the first week. Last week we recorded 29 goals. Some shock results, some exciting results, and I mean, the 2 new teams are really, they're trying to really show that they're in this league. JVW against UJ was quite interesting last week. Shocking. I think very impressive from UJ. They've signed very young players. And they shocked JVW very much, definitely. And Durban ladies also, we're hoping that they can actually bring a lot into this new season. try and make an impact, bring us another Amanda Dlamini and a few other great players for our national teams. I'll also say Ducks also is doing quite great, and I know for a fact that JVW is signing players from Europe, Sweden to be specific, they're signing quite a few players from Europe. A lot of players are coming in from Lesotho. There's a few also coming in from Botswana. I know the Limpopo teams have also maybe knocked on doors of Zimbabwe. So really, I think the quality of the league has grown from when it first started. And we're grateful to Hollywood Bets because it will make sure that Banyana become a better product than they already are. So it's great to see that women's football has firstly grown. It's been given the respect that it deserves all over the world. And we're grateful to places like Mexico that are really looking into South Africa and seeing the talent that we have, Of course, a Tembi Khatlane would have been our biggest export, but then you look at a Jermaine, you look at Sinakolo, Sane, Hilda, who are all in Mexico, and your Nokus who are in Spain, So it's great that women's football is finally getting the recognition it deserves. Well, we've had our challenges in the past, obviously coming from COVID. We can't keep using that excuse anymore. We really need people to come out and support women's football, Yes, we have our matches on TV. We're live streaming a few every week, but we are asking for people to really come out to the stadiums. Our games are still free, We want this to be the last season where there is no ticket fee, because ticket sales are what generates money for clubs, So we want this to be the last season where entrance is free, but we want people to really go out and support women's football and also understand that they have a role to play in those communities and making sure that these teams are getting the sponsors they deserve, the support from their communities, and put pride in women's football.
Well, great insight there from Unamhla and, of course, Sizwe Mabena. Now, Mahlatse Mphahlele, when you look into the Hollywood Bets Super League, you look at also the number of goals. Mamelodi Sundowns continuing season after season where they left it off. Just the second week of the league, we saw them scoring a good 5 goals, which I thought absolutely impressive. Talk to us about the league and the growth that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think it's a league that has got potential to grow. A lot of work has been done, and obviously thanks to the sponsor for helping the ladies out. And you remember when Banyana came back from the World Cup, everybody was talking about professionalism and all those kind of things. And that noise is quite dialed down now, and it's very disappointing that we sort of just reverted back to factory settings, and it's continuing. The reality is that the league really is not fully professional, and we need to keep on making this noise that the time has arrived that we have to professionalize the ladies, not only football, rugby, netball, that they are professional.
Cricket as well.
Cricket as well.
Yeah,
the way our ladies are able to compete at international tournaments against fully fledged professionals shows you that if you make them professional, anything is possible. But currently, it has started very well. There's been some goals and stuff, and also what is important is that people must support the league.
Yeah. 100%.
Attendance has been very poor, and it is very important that to make the lady feel special when they're going to matches, and we don't expect them to be full, but we're expecting that the crowd must be enough and sizable.
But also, I think it's important to point out when we say people must support the league, we're not just saying it for the sake of saying it, as if there's no entertainment value there.
Yeah, for sure.
If you go watch the ladies' game, it's terribly entertaining. It's improved so much in leaps and bounds over the last 15, 20 years. You get good value for money if you go out and you support the ladies. And for now, as Namhla pointed out, the entrance fee is free at their stadiums. By next season, they're hoping to start charging people to get in. So here's your last chance, maybe this season, to go out there, enjoy the football, get to know the players as well, get to know your stars, get to welcome those coming in from overseas and playing in our local league before we start, hopefully, getting people paying for tickets at the start of next season. That's a big step in moving towards being professional as well.
And the other thing is, whenever Banyana are playing at World Cups and Olympics, everybody's watching.
Yes.
Sure. But it will be nicer if people are watching the players they know. Because most of the times they don't even know these players because they're playing in this league. Because we don't watch the league, you know. So it's important that we need to get used to this league, so that when they are there at the World Cup, we know what we're supporting. Because sometimes it's just hype, you know, because it's the World Cup and everybody's, you know, their eyes are there. But, you know, we need to start by supporting them at the Hollywood Bets League until, you know, when they are with Banyana going to big tournaments.
100%. And of course, this weekend it is the third week of the Hollywood Bet Super League. An exciting encounter has to be Mamelodi Sundowns taking on, of course, second place, currently that being University of Johannesburg. It promises to be quite thrilling, and of course, goals galore. So make sure that you pull through. As the gentlemen have mentioned, entrance is free. We move over still in football, of course. Now we're talking all things the Soweto Derby. As I mentioned, Mahlatse Mphahlele got his prediction absolutely wrong. He said, I thought Kaizer Chiefs is going to shock you. And well, we were shocked.
We were shocked though in a good way. I think first with the number of goals in the entertainment, that was a pleasant shock, it's safe to say, yeah?
Yeah, definitely one of the best derbies I think we've seen in most recent time. And Sizwe Mabena, for once, he was right in his life. For once in your life, yes, you were right.
You should have known that you can't trust these Kaizer Chiefs.
You should have known. You and William Shonga went the other side. But talk to us about that, Mahlatse. I mean, you look at an exciting encounter, a filled-up F&B stadium. And, of course, I think the biggest thing that we talk about, right, is the youngsters. We spoke about seeing Umofukeng, seeing Wandile Duba, who we didn't see. He got, of course, to be subbed on. Talk to us about, of course, then, you know, that those youngsters mainly, I guess, in the Orlando Pirates side?
Yeah, firstly, I guess it goes without saying that the Derby is the biggest sporting event in the country.
Sure.
Yeah.
By a country mile. And the past weekend just once again proved it. Full stadium. You know, sometimes you just have to admire that the madness around the event.
Yes.
It's frustrating, it's chaotic, but, you know, there's still fun in this whole craziness.
What time did you get there, by the way? Because I think to paint the chaotic picture...
I got there, I think, about 3 hours before the game.
Yeah.
And
that
outside,
makes sense.
Yeah, it was already packed, and you know, you get angry and all these things. And also, I mean, what is even more crazy is that after the match, I mean, I think I left the stadium around 8 o'clock. It was just bad. The traffic was still bad, but you know, people are happy, excited. The Pirates fans, I mean, are happy, and Chiefs fans are, you know, drowning their sorrows with whatever they were doing. Yeah. And it just sort of encapsulate whatever this occasion means to South Africans. And sometimes it's one of those things where you have to be there at that particular time to experience it. And on the field, for a change,
they brought it.
Good game.
They brought it.
I will still also hesitate to say that maybe when they talk about the Soweto Derby Classics, it wouldn't be there. Per se,
I don't
but
know.
it was.
I disagree with you.
I think you're being a bit.
I don't think it was
last week we spoke about. I remember I said for me the last most memorable derby was in 2008 or 9. The one with Kenyeza scoring early and Walaza scoring as well, the 2-2 scoreline. That's a long time to wait for anything close to that.
No, I'm not taking away. I'm taking away from the match. I think it was a thoroughly enjoying football match.
Sure.
You know, the two teams going at each other.
One coming from behind. There's the drama there as well.
The atmosphere. It had everything. I just don't think it was just, you know, it just one small thing to the goals.
What was missing? You know? What was missing, Mahlatse? Because I'm confused right now.
Even I spoke to Jerry Kusana this morning, and he was saying to me, Guti, he even feared that his record was going to be broken as the last player to score.
Saleng needed more time.
2 players on the bench. He was at the stadium and he was worried. Like,
they were going to play 120 minutes extra time. You know, I enjoyed it.
It had everything we needed.
I mean, when I say it had that little thing, I wasn't quite sitting on the edge of my seat quite yet. You know, I enjoyed every single
You looked happy. I was watching you. You looked very happy, so I'm confused by this.
Videos of you from above there.
Exactly, the man looked happy.
You know, that's a good football match. I mean, even the final coach said it last year. Last year's one was boring, but this one he was also equally entertained by the quality of the football. I mean, the goals, especially the Pirates goals by Libizo, and you know, they were very, very good, beautiful goals. I mean, it's a hardly you get 5 goals in any other match, and you get 5 goals in a derby, you can't ask for more.
Sizwe Mabena, last week when you chose your star of the week, you went with Mafokeng, and here he is now at the Soweto Derby, and he actually stands up. I mean, my goodness, those back heels deflect. I'm like, yo, guys, Ratome is on top of us. He did not shy away from the occasion. Talk to us about that.
I actually, I felt bad. I felt like I was putting pressure on him last week because I said we could be looking at a young Debogumului. And I thought, that's a lot to put on his shoulders. It's almost saying we're looking at a young Dr. Kumalu. You know, it's a lot to put on a young, shoes monsieur. It's a lot to put on a youngster's shoulders going into such a big game. And then he has the game he had, where he's playing those back heels. But it's not just playing it for the sake of playing it. It's working out and it's entertaining and it's troubling Chiefs. And the way the Pirates youngsters, including the Chiefs youngsters, went at this game, they wanted to show up and show out. And they did show out. They made it entertaining. Maswangani, I thought, was also top-notch. I thought we saw a different level of him. I also saw a video of him in the change room, giving his teammates a bit of a bash. William Shongo was talking about that, where you need those players that will come up and shake the others into acting. So there's stars that are coming out of this game, that have come out of this game. We're hoping they maintain it going forward. It's not just about the Soweto Derby, of course, but also the youngsters that are making names for themselves now. Where we're saying, look, for the last year, we've been talking about your potential, but now you are star quality. And you're earning the right to be star quality and be amongst the most marketable players in South African football, which we need right now. The game needs that right now.
I mean, with Mofokeng, you know, they say when you're good enough, you're old enough. I mean, you know, what can we say about the kid? You know?
No, the kid is brilliant.
He's a good footballer. And for me, having watched him for a while now, what I like about him is that, you know, sometimes I like a player who just does the basics right, you know. He doesn't complicate things. Of course, sometimes maybe the final pass is not the right one, decision making is not quite there, but, you know, he will learn playing big matches like this. And Maswangani, I've had a lot to say about him. I like him, but I feel sometimes...
Do you want to pause that? Because we're still going to talk about T20 just a bit. So yeah, we need to cross over first. But sticking with Kaizer Chiefs, right? I want to talk to Mahlatse about that starting 11, because you had Mdu Mdantsane, who has not played for Kaizer Chiefs in a very long time. And personally, I mean, he comes from our hometown, so you know I like the player. But I wasn't sure of giving him a start in a game like this where we haven't seen him play for Kaizer Chiefs. And then you also look into the combination. I did not see that combination in the middle park. It was not clicking for Kaizer Chiefs.
Yeah, it was a surprise. It was definitely a surprise.
Coming in,
the same as Saleng was a surprise for Pirates. The coach tried to explain it, but it just didn't quite click with me. Chiefs, I mean, as we have always been saying, it's a team. I guess they did try to come to the party on the day. They competed, and unfortunately, their best was just not good enough. You know, you can always sit back in hindsight and say maybe you should have started with Mdantsane or whatever the case may be. He didn't have the best of games. For them as a team, also not the best of, but they did contribute to the spectacle. And one thing that helped them, which is what the coach has always been saying, take your chances. Yep. In the past, Dupree, for example, that shot that led to the first goal, he would not have taken that shot. And it tells you that if you take the shot when you are in the danger area, anything can happen. You know, so he took his chances. He scored the goals, also 2 goals for him. Unfortunately, you know, they couldn't score more. If he had scored more, maybe the result could have been different. But Chiefs, not quite the well-oiled machine that they want to be.
For sure.
And that result puts them in a very difficult position now, because finishing second becomes even a lot more tougher now.
We also have to talk about the quality of the goals. Yeah. There's plenty of goals, but quality goals, which for me is also a big thing. There were standing goals throughout, well created, well finished. I love some of the assists from Modi, the 2 he got. Maswangani's assist as well was a lovely assist. So there was moments of brilliance that wasn't just one player. It was one player coming up with a moment of brilliance and another finishing it off with a standing finish to go with it. It was just made for a great derby. It wasn't just goals, it was good goals, well created. and great tempo to the game as well. So I loved it on both sides. I really enjoyed it.
And Libitso started the game very poorly.
The first half was disastrous.
He was not quite sure what was happening there. I think he was beaten by the pace of the game. I think.
No, but you know what I think with that Mahlatse? I mean, when he was a cheaper, he was more used as a right wing than a right back. So I think that adaptation for him, I think that was where the confusion was. So I think hence second half he was a different player.
Best goal in the
Even
derby
though
in a
you
long
can
time.
imagine that maybe, I mean, they should have worked on this at training during the week.
Yes.
But, he should have had time to sort of adjust to playing your traditional right back. And also, our playing in front of 90,000 people might have contributed.
Sure.
But he settled down and he scored a beautiful goal also. I mean,
I have to ask, this is the best goal we've seen in a derby, and one of the best goals we've seen in a derby?
Yeah, one of the
One
best.
of the best.
Yeah. I remember there was a goal that was scored by David Obua some years back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that must be one of them. The goal I spoke about from Shakes last week, a long range shot outside the box. Yeah, so they should have been.
So this is right up there with those.
Yeah, no, it was a well taken goal.
Yeah, it was. I was on my feet when it happened.
The technique was right.
Yeah.
The timing, the weight. Sometimes you can't say the player meant it.
Oh no,
you just have to blast it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the intention was to hit the inside of the post and it must come inside. So you just have to, when you are there, you don't ask questions.
For sure.
The coaches will always say, buy that lotto ticket, and you'll never know. And he bought the lotto ticket, and he hit the jackpot. So you have to take a shot when you're there.
100%. On that note, let's then move over to Coach Hugo Broos, who talks about Patrick Masonganye, because these two gentlemen, they are dying to talk about Tito and, of course, the progress that he's made in his football.
I think with and excuse me that I look at his name because Maswangani. So what I saw from him, and I think he can be the one for the future. I saw him playing Wednesday, and after the game we talked with Helman and we said, but then I saw him playing Saturday. He played a very good game. And this is what I want to see from him in Bafana Bafana. So when he can achieve that level also with us, he can be someone for the future. He can be someone that can replace Temba for the future. I don't think about him. I don't think about to replace Temba now. But we have to think. Temba is 35 nearly. So we will be 36, 37 in 26. And when you have that age, it can happen. And then we have to be ready. So let's hope that he is the one, and that we have solved that problem already for the near future.
Absolutely exciting, of course, Mahlatse, to see and hear Coach Hugo. It's quite interesting, actually. I've seen him at Orlando Stadium twice in the last two encounters. So he's been giving access and he is watching the game, which has been the biggest cry for most South Africans to say, can we see Coach Hugo at the stadiums watching the game? He's been doing that. And here's Tito now being called up after not being initially being part of the original squad that will be, of course, playing in this international FIFA break. Talk to us about him.
Yeah, I spoke to someone with knowledge of how these things work, and I'm told that Tito's name was not in the list.
Yeah.
Was not on the Bafana squad before Saturday. And, it shows you if you rock up when it matters the most, something can happen. And the coach had got, as we've heard from the inside, he sort of likes him. He has been following him. And I think the guy has done enough now to convince the coach that he can go to the national team. I've also, as all of us, we've been watching him. I think he's got the makings of a good footballer. The coaches mentioned him in the same sentence as Temba Zwane.
Wow.
I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
For now.
I also feel it's too soon, eh?
I'm just not sure for now. Temba Zwane, for me,
It's Shika, guys.
He's in that same level as the Surprise Muriris, the Teko Mudises. You know, he's up there with the players who did it over the last, what?
At a very high level.
10, 20 years. But arguably, one of the best players of his generation. And for Tito, he must know now that he's got a lot of living up to do.
For sure.
If he's to become the Bafana Kingpin, it's a mammoth responsibility. And I hope he's ready for this, because it's not going to be easy.
I think for Masanga, it's one thing to take that compliment and remember one thing. There was a game once where Aces was playing and Clive Parker was there as a coach. At the end of that game, a young Zwane was playing in that match and had a great game. And then, out of the blue, Clive Parker says in the post-match interview, this young man, watch him for the future. He reminds me of Dr. Kumalo and players of that ilk. And from then on, we never watched Zwane with the same eye. But he lived up to expectation. He never really dropped the ball ever once, did Zwane. He should have been an international for much longer in South Africa. I think we dropped the ball then as a nation on him on the international stage. But for Masanga, 25 years of age now, this is the time. If he's going to reach those levels, this is the time. It's a bit late for the international stage, but that's not his fault. Maybe it's our fault as South Africa. We've done this many a time. Stiko was the same. Zwane was the same. But if he can jump onto this as this experience that he's had with the Derby and what Hugo Broos is saying, and use that as inspiration now to move up a level and be consistent, which is the most important thing, I think he can become something quite special in South African football.
You know what I like, and I guess you can also add to it, Mahlatse, is that the thing about Tito, it's the hunger. And I remember yesterday we were listening to Coach Rulani Mokwena saying that you need to have players who are still hungry, who still want to achieve, who still want to fight and be the best that they can be. And he, quote unquote, he says, otherwise it's chai. Once that hunger leaves you, it's over for you, it's done. So I think for me, Tito seems to have his head at the right space. He wants to do it, because to get into an Orlando Pirates camp and to command the respect that he wants and to actually show up the way that he is, I think it kind of shows us the kind of player that he's willing to be. Hence, maybe liken him to a Themba Zwane. Just that Themba, of course, is just a bit more shy, a bit more reserved, but he's still also, a big caliber player.
And from a human perspective, I mean, let's not forget, this guy played overseas. So, I mean, overseas, the level of professionalism is a little bit higher. I hope he has that to know that as a pro footballer, you have to behave in a particular manner. If he wins that battle first, then the rest of the stuff, I think they'll follow through. We don't want to hear the stories that he's not coming to training, and that's bad. You will never fulfill a potential if you behave like that. I hope the stuff he learned overseas, in terms of how to look after himself, to regenerate, to rest, not be all over the place in the malls and the Chisanyama, it will help him. And also for me, what I've seen from him as a footballer, I just hope, man, he can cut out a bit of the frills. He likes these things that...
the flashy stuff.
Yeah, at international football, I mean, at AFCON semi-final, you are not going to do that thing. Unless, if you do it to eliminate a defender, to go forward. Sometimes our guys just dance for no apparent reason. And, at the highest level, you don't cut it when you do those things. But that's the only criticism I have of him. But as a genuine footballer, I've got no question about it.
There's a difference between having skill and showboating. I think what you're talking about is just showboating.
He just sometimes
it's not just using
sometimes
skill.
he just do something that doesn't help anyone. Just for the crowd to, and I mean, like I'm saying, if you're playing in an AFCON semi-final against Nigeria, you're not gonna do that stuff.
For sure.
Because they take the ball and then they go score, and then
All right, on that note, we then move over. Mahlatse Mphahlele sent an email requesting that we plug the secondary show, that being Prime Time with Mahlatse Mphahlele. He had a conversation with Trompi's Paul and Ndlandla. Let's find out what he has to say about player treatment.
There was this thing, you see, the players will take, at some point they will tease you, jokingly, but they will mean it. They will say, hey man, hey David, you're not team now. You see. I got Davidson United or Pino United. Those remarks, you know. But I understand. But mine was to play well. But one thing for sure, if you know your job and you master your job, there's no way they can hate you. There is no way. Because I have to go and master my job there and score goals. There's no way that you can sabotage me. You're becoming friends. But it happens at some point. I don't want to mention names to this young player. It happens to these young players from Soweto. When someone's coming, the young player coming from they're insecure about some threatening, they does not pass, you know, it happens. But I used to tell them, look, I don't want to mention it because it won't be nice. I used to tell them, this is life, don't do that. This is not your team. One day, you'll find the same guy. It's not do that. They understand because I was a senior player. And I understand the situation. Life is too short. You don't treat someone bad. But they understand. But it happens, Tom, like my brother. It's happened in the workplace anyway. Whatever you will be jealous or do something wrong to you. But as long as you're focused, you do your job, you master your job, things will go well.
Sizwe Mabena, you're on a primary show, he's on a secondary show.
I just thought it was very kind of you and the producers to come to that decision where, Mahlatse's other show needed a hand. And you're doing all we can, of course, to help them get the numbers up.
We did the numbers.
So very kind of you and the producers.
Very kind, right?
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome,
Mahlatse. Great chat with the legend, man.
I had, we spent the morning with the legend at this place. Welcomed us very nice. It was in the morning. It was a bit cold. Nice cookies and tea, and his madam looked after us very well. We had a nice chat also.
You know, Mahlatse made me laugh in the interview. When the interview starts, he asked Pauline, now what happened to the dreads?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I saw him not too long ago, a few years ago, he still had the dreads. And I was thinking to myself, it's time now.
He says, no, I don't want people to recognize me anymore now. Take off this thing.
I want to have my private life now. But talk to us. I mean, the main thing from that interview that we picked up, Mahlatse, is, the player treatment. And it's probably something that still goes on because you look at Kaizer Chiefs currently where there's rumors of, the colored players and the black players. So talk to us about, the treatment that players may receive.
Yeah, well, he touched on it. Something which has been, some other players have spoken about it before. To say there was a culture at Chiefs at that time where if you're from Soweto, you have challenges. They won't pass with the ball. So he also experienced the same thing. Hence, when he arrived there, immediately he struck a very good relationship with Isaac Shesungwan, because Isaac Shesungwan was from Alexandra, and he was from Davidson. So they were also doing their own thing. But also the important thing that he says there is that you have to win these guys over by what you can do on the pitch. If you start playing, if they can see that you score goals. They can start bringing the goals. They'll have to pass with the ball now. Because if you score, they also win. So it took him a while. But finally he was welcomed and he left as a senior player.
Speaking about Kungwane, I had the pleasure of working with him for a good 10 or so years. Great guy, but he also loved talking football and talking his generation of football, as all footballers do.
For sure.
But he'd always mention Upollen, and he'd always say in this way, Upollen, all those assists you're supposed to give me. I didn't get bonuses for scoring. I'm supposed to get my card. So Upollen,
and I mean, Pauline does admit in the interview that the guy made me a star. There was an incident where Pauline, I think he won an award at the PSL. Then when he went upstage, he thanked his wife. Then the Sheikh said, no, I'm no longer passing you. You will pass me.
Your wife must pass you.
So funny relationship, a great relationship. But Sheikhs also spoke a lot about Pauline and his career.
They used to share a room.
How Pauline made his career shine.
They used to share a room, very, very close.
I love those chats when you talk about roommates. It's always quite interesting because you also hear what they get up to, their favorite traits. But Sizwe Mabena, I mean, talking about about, the treatment. Also recently, you hear, when we bring in players from other parts of the world, other parts of the country, is that mainly the players from that country, they believe that if you are here, you need to be better than us because you can't come here and we're better than you.
Yeah. I've spoken to the likes of Matthew Booth, who played in Russia, Stanton Fredericks played in Greece, Russia. All of those players that played abroad say the same thing.
Yeah.
As a foreigner, there's twice the pressure on you to deliver. Matthew Booth would then, of course, take pride in the fact that at the end of every Russian season, they select a foreign All-Star 11 against a local All-Star 11, almost like an All-Star event you have in the NBA in basketball.
Yeah.
And he was always, on a few occasions, captain of the foreign All-Star 11, which of course means the locals and everyone is happy with his work in the game as a foreigner. That's the big up you need. But it's always important as a foreigner to know that. There's pressure all over the world. As a foreigner, you have to earn your spot in the team because you're taking someone else's spot.
Yeah.
And also, what's happening with what they're saying within the change rooms, if you're not from Soweto and so on. We've heard rumors, of course. If you remember out in Black Leopards, there was times when it was reported, I'm not saying it was true, but it was suggested through reports, which players that are from Toyondo have a different treatment to players that are from outside of Toyondo. I've also spoken to players that say if you in the same team with coloured players that are from Joburg and coloured players from Cape Town, those communities don't necessarily see eye to eye, and there's a bit of competitiveness between those two.
For sure.
And the differences, of course, being from the different parts of the country. So throughout football and throughout the local stage, depending on where you go, you'll get those sort of scenarios.
I mean, talking about foreigners, Alex Chagwani told me a story of Roger Fidumpa when he faced Arab the Sun.
Yeah.
Go fingers.
When they never knew about this guy before, and when they were doing that rondo, Sundowns had naughty players during those days. Lavas, Fire, Juas Mahlatse, those guys, Isaac Shai.
Lavas was a character.
Yeah. So when they were doing the rondo, they want to test him if he can play. They give him a tough paddle. Then they say Roger will trap it and put it down. And, so they did a few times.
Yeah.
Like you were doing with me outside earlier.
Yeah.
You would not be in the team.
So after a while, they can see, hey, we've got something here.
Yeah.
Now Fire said, hey, Brashaks, hey, we got something here. We got to go there. And then from there, that's when all the Sundowns players earned the respect of Roger Fidumpa. They never did anything like that. And then they said to Roger, we've got a guy in South Africa called Dr. Kumal. We need you to deal with that man.
Oh,
and that was it.
Man, it did. Absolutely. And we could talk more and more about, of course, the stories of back in the day. We do move over. We do know that this weekend, the Cup of Dreams is upon us, the last 16. It is the Nedbank Cup. We managed to go to the press conference here in Gauteng to find out, of course, from the coaches. Let's hear what they have to say.
We are happy to be in the last 16. And now we have a team in front of us that looks on a paper like, okay, it should be easy, but we are sure and we know that it will be not easy. It's always a tricky one. That's why we went and watched 2 games live from them. So we drove around 4 hours to go there and to watch them. So we have some information that we will, of course, get into the analyze and see what for a game plan we will have to go there. And of course, and our goal is to go to the next round. And I think without any doubt, we have this kind of plan. We should be confidence that we can go there and win the game. And I think it's a must for us. And this is how we will go into the game with a lot of focus and try to, of course, to go to the next round.
What's lovely is to still be in the cup. As you rightfully say, it's been a while since we've had a run in a cup like this, and at this stage we consider it a bonus still to be in the hat. And of course, coming up against Richards Bay going to pose a challenge in itself. Firstly, they're hovering at the bottom of the table, which is an added pressure on them from a league perspective, but they're also looking to just change their focus a little bit and have a run from a different perspective in this cup. So by any means, it's not going to be an easy fixture for us, and our work on the training ground is gearing us towards that, and we'll definitely see how that goes, but it's not going to be an easy one, that's for sure.
It's an opportunity for us to perform in a better way, different than the last time that we were there in a PSL fixture. So it's nice that this game in Orlando is coming soon. It's coming quick after the last derby, and understanding that it's a knockout game. So, like I said several times, we don't think so much, or we don't see ourselves like in an advantage situation because the opponent is playing in the second tier. We know the story about these games, and we are preparing ourselves with the maximum respect for the match, because we know that it's not going to be an easy one.
No, these games are very tough, and the difficulty is that everybody expects you to win, and so the pressure's on you, and you've got to perform on the day, and it's not easier. It's you've got to prepare mentally. You've got to be in the right space, and the players have got to get into the expectation and of the right performance level, And if we can perform to that level, I'm sure we'll be fine. Good team, as I said, Maritzburg, with good coach, and some very, very good players who have PSL experience. And the club is a club that knows the runnings of the league. They've got a history of doing well in cup competitions too. And so we've got to make sure that we are ready mentally more than anything else. The rules in the NFD do not allow for all your senior players to play. You've got to have a certain number of youngsters in your team at a certain point. But when you play the cup game, you can play all your senior players. And so already that is one of the biggest things that you've got to take into consideration. And so proper profiling and analysis of the squad and the depth of the squad and the players and even the players that don't regularly feature. For an example, like a La Masia, for an example, we had to even check where they have a player like Virgil Fries who hasn't been playing. They had Siabonga Zulu who was not playing in the previous round. But we had to do analysis on them to say in case they are in the starting lineup.
Well, it's great to see, of course, that the coaches are all in high spirits and looking forward to this weekend encounter. But already qualified is, of course, Stags, who've managed to make sure that they continue their progress in the Nedbank Cup season against Swallows.
Two sides to the story. Let's start off with Stags. I really have, over the years, been of the belief they add value to South African football. When they did make it up to the top flight of South African football, they gave us the likes of Charlie, Zungu, and many others that went on to have long-standing careers and contributed beautifully to the quality of PSL football. Even in their time in the top flight, I think Stags, they played a good brand of football. They were a respectable team. It was sad for me to see them go. What they've done in varsity football is amongst the best we've seen over the last 10 years in varsity football and so on. Also in the National First Division, twice they've almost qualified now of late back to the top flight of South African football. So they're in the race again this season. So if they get up back to the top flight of South African football, kudos for them, but good luck for them in the Netbank Cup right now. Nice for them to be pushing on. And then there's the Swallows side of the story. Let's not forget, they just lost 4-1 to Skukune. And now they've just lost in the Netbank Cup. And that Netbank Cup win they had earlier on, or a few weeks ago, was an important one, getting their spirits up. And you begin to wonder if this is the beginning of worries for Morocco Swallows, not just in the Netbank Cup loss, but overall now in the PSL as well. Having lost that heavy 4-1 scoreline, losing now to Stags. What's the story for Swallows going forward? So there's two sides to the story that are very interesting. One is for a team that seems to be on the up and up, Stags in the NFD and also in the Netbank Cup. The other, for a team that we don't know as yet
For sure.
where they stand and what their future will be like. Will it be bleak or not? There's question marks for Swallows. And is this the start of troubling times? For me, is the big question for Swallows.
And only time will answer those questions. We move over Mahlatse Mphahlele. We had the pleasure, of course, to being present at the Nedbank Cup press conference. And it was quite interesting in how journalists were looking forward to seeing how Siya Dramovic and Orlando Mokwena were going to meet up, if they're going to shake hands. And I'm just like, wow, guys, really? I think we've moved over. But they missed each other, fortunately. But talk to us, of course, of what some of the pickups that you got from the coaches' reactions.
Yeah, well, I guess one of the things that I picked up was Rulani talking about the issue of older players versus younger players. It was a massive discussion point during the day after he said that what he said, and his view is that all older players must be respected even more than younger players who are coming through. I slightly sort of differ with him in a way. You still have to, I accept that you still have to have senior players in the team. And he was given an example of Pepe for Porto against Arsenal.
Modric as well for Madrid.
Yes, which is what I which is what I noticed when I was watching the game, that the guy is still going on so strong at this level.
Yeah.
Kudos to him, because it means he looks after himself and he does the right things. I mean, if you look at Ronaldo, he's playing, he's collecting a paycheck there.
And missing penalties now, eh? Ronaldo is
human now.
He's human.
Someone
now.
actually made a comparison. Pepe is the same age as the Arsenal coach.
Yeah.
That was retired a long time ago, But it's good. It means if you are at that age, at that level, you have to work extra hard. Locally, he gave an example of Dennis Onyango, who it's older, but whenever he gets opportunities these days, you can still see the quality. I think he can go to some of the teams in the league and add value.
Look, I have to agree with him on many fronts here when he talks about those older players. Let's take two old players at Sundowns. One you've mentioned is Onyango, the other is Zwane. Both of them. Can you think of a Sundowns without them? Even still now, yes, they do have Ronwen, and that's because Sundowns do have the depth they do have. They also had Kennedy Mweni, an AFCON winner. In Onyango, you've got a keeper who's named the best in Africa, where we rate him now as highly as El Hadari. Now, as a youngster stepping into the change room, when I look at Onyango, if you know what we know about football, that this guy is amongst the best on the continent, and was seen as the best on the continent, it changes the way I behave myself around him, the way I carry myself around him. What he says goes. The same goes for Zwane, and they're part of that group that also won the Champions League with Mamelodi Sundowns as well. So when Rulani says, those older players need to be respected, those are like your seniors at school walking around at the places with the scrolls that go all the way down. They treat them differently.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you remember as well, Mahlatse, he touched on it, saying that the biggest scope that we need as well, not only just in football, but society, is mentorship, where he alluded to the fact that the youngsters need somebody to look up to, and they need to have these role models around them. So if you have Mshishi around, imagine what that does to Siyabonga Mabena. If you have a Dennis Onyango, what does it do, to the younger keepers? Ronan Williams looks up to Dennis Onyango. So having these older players, it does serve a purpose, and I think we shouldn't really discard them. They still, they have a role.
No, I mean, that is true. You need elders. It's just like in any way in society. You need elders. Sometimes you call your parents and you call your uncle, to navigate around stuff. That is very important. And also for institutional memory. They know things which we don't know, So elder people are always important. My issue is that also, at the same time, you need to find the balance as to how do you bring in the youngsters.
That's the most important.
And I mean, it's something which I've noticed, but people can disagree with me. But I've looked at top elite international football. The best players currently in the world now, they're teenagers. If you don't have the conveyor belt is not bringing up the quality that is coming up, you are going to have a problem, because now you will be caught. You don't have somebody to replace Tambazwane. You don't have somebody to replace it. For their sake, for Onyango, they do have Ronan Williams. But who's going to at Sundowns right now? Who will replace the Tambazwane? They don't have. And you need to have that plan a succession plan. In a company, they do have succession plans. So the coach is correct. Senior players are important and they must be respected for longevity and doing the right things and stuff. But at the same time, the delicate balancing act is to ensure that you have Chandra Campbell, you have Imi Ekon, you have got Jaden Adams, you know, you have got these kids coming through who can immediately, immediately get into the first team and compete.
All right, Sizwe Mabena, since you've got, of course, your groove on in terms of predictions, Orlando Pirates is in action today, Netbank Cup, tomorrow, against Hungry Lions. And we do know that your goal scorer, Libito, won't be available for selection for Orlando Pirates, as he's got, of course, he's picked up a suspension because he picked up a 4th yellow card in the Soweto Derby. What are you expecting from Orlando Pirates? They did well at Mbombela Stadium against Crystal Lake. How do they pick up against the Hungry Lion?
I expect them to power on. I think the Derby win is an important one for them in just giving them the momentum they need to keep moving, especially at this time of the season when things get tough. Around February, March, that's when things either start to improve for you in reaching your aspirations. Yes, they won't catch Sundowns, but we're talking maybe finishing second and picking up a Netbank Cup here and there. This is when seasons are made and broken for those in their position.
For sure.
So I think Pirates, especially with the Derby win, are in a great position to just continue on here to building in confidence. I mean, players being spoken about by Hugo Broos, even though game was mentioned by Hugo Broos saying he's got an eye on him. There's so much reason to believe that that camp right now is walking around, especially the young players that are becoming true stars now, are walking around thinking, look, we're on cloud 9, we're trying to get to cloud 18.
All right, Mahlatse Mphahlele, Mamelodi Sundowns, they playing Maritzburg United. And of course, after they picked up a draw against SuperSport United midweek, how do you expect them to turn out?
That's what it is. Walk in the park for some. They won't have problems there. They won't have problems there.
No issues whatsoever. It's going to be cruising
Sunday
nicely.
morning, walking the dog there on the park on Sunday morning.
All right, so then talk to us about the players that we expect to see. Do you then keep your star players, or is this the perfect time to bring in those youngsters?
Well, it's tricky because the Champions League stuff is coming up now. And coaches always talk about consistency. Also, the players want to keep on playing. I don't think they'll change. I think he'll play the strongest possible team. Because also a team like Maritzburg, if you tinker too much with the team, they'll beat you. You have to be professional in approach. The players must do the right thing. I felt they didn't play that well against SuperSport. And this is a chance for them to come back now and to get back to winning ways. They wouldn't stretch much about this game, but I'm not saying that they will undermine or not take it serious. But there are bigger games that are coming where the focus will be there, and especially the Champions League. This team they are playing against, young Africans. I'm sure these days there's videos and stuff. They will get those things
for sure.
But it's a team that if you don't plan properly, will have problems. But with Maritzburg, it's
a walk in the park, you say.
For the animals, put them in the pot there on Monday morning. There shouldn't be problems.
I just beg to differ on one thing. I do think he might tinker with the squad a bit. I think there's, like you say, so much coming now that you need as many of those players ready in case of injuries and such. And he might tinker with it a bit. But the SuperSport United result also, then I might throw a bit of a spanner in the works to say, look, maybe throw in your best squad and get them back to their best. But I'm of the impression he's going to tinker with it a bit.
All right, we'll see if you're still spot on or your luck has finally run out. After you're feeling confident. I think it's going to be chai for you this weekend.
but in football there are flu goals.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm not mentioning names, but they're flu goals.
I'm like the Derby goals last weekend. No flukes, Papa. All of them well executed,
We've got footage that everything you do with that ball is definitely a fluke. But gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. We do it again next week, All right, well, that's it from the Arena Sports Show. As you can tell, I did not lie when I said Sizwe Mabena can't kick a ball to save his life, but he can definitely hold on to it, and maybe he might be spot on in terms of his predictions. But that's it from us. We'll see you again next week. Cheers, goodbye.